Gaza death toll rises as Qatar seeks U.S. support amid escalating conflict. Nepal in crisis as 51 dead, over 12,000 prisoners still at large amid protests. Trump confirms suspect in Charlie Kirk shooting is in custody. And Burkina Faso drops visa fees for African nationals in Pan-African push. Good afternoon. Welcome to Around the World in 30 minutes on Politics and Business Television. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oibo. Many thanks for joining us. Details of the stories and more to come after the break. To stay with us. At least 50 Palestinians were killed in Gaza on Friday as Israeli air and artillery strikes intensified across Gaza City, targeting residential buildings and forcing thousands to flee. Medical sources confirmed that 14 victims were members of a single family, underscoring the human cost of the deepening conflict. The attacks come amid mounting international outrage, with the UN Security Council convening an emergency session to condemn Israel's recent strike on Hamas leaders in Doha. In response to the crisis, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani is in Washington for high-level talks with U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Reports also suggest a meeting with President Donald Trump is on the cards as Qatar seeks to rally diplomatic pressure and reinforce its role in regional mediation. Sheikh Mohammed has accused Israel of recklessly destabilizing the region and undermining peace efforts, particularly following the strike on Doha. The Israeli government, meanwhile, denies responsibility for targeting Qatar and claims there's no evidence linking the drones or attacks to its forces. As tensions escalate, Hamas has vowed to continue its resistance, demanding a full withdrawal of Israeli troops and the reconstruction of Gaza, with diplomatic channels now in overdrive. The international community faces a critical test in preventing further escalation and protecting civilian lives. Moving on now, the United Arab Emirates has formally summoned Israel's deputy head of mission, David Ohad Horsandi, to protest a deadly airstrike that targeted Hamas leaders in Qatar. Emirati Minister of State for International Cooperation Reem bint Ibrahim al-Hashimi condemned the attack as a blatant and cowardly violation of Qatar's sovereignty and an irresponsible escalation that threatens regional peace. The diplomatic move marks a rare rebuke from the UAE, which normalized ties with Israel under the 2020 Abraham Accords. The summoning comes ahead of an emergency Arab-Islamic summit in Doha as Gulf nations rally to coordinate a response. Qatar's Prime Minister is also expected to meet top U.S. officials in Washington and growing pressure on Israel to de-escalate tensions and respect international norms. Meanwhile, violent anti-corruption protests in Nepal have claimed at least 51 lives this week as the country reels from widespread unrest triggered by a government crackdown on social media and allegations of misgovernance. Among the dead are 21 protesters, 9 prisoners, 3 police officers and 18 civilians, according to police reports. The chaos has forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign, while the army has imposed curfews and taken control of major cities to restore order. Adding to the turmoil, more than 13,500 inmates have escaped from prisons nationwide during the protest, with over 12,500 still on the run. Some fugitives have reportedly attempted to cross into India, where border forces have begun apprehending escapees. The jailbreaks began after demonstrators stormed facilities, freeing high-profile detainees and triggering mass escapes. Security forces have since recovered over 100 looted firearms, raising fears of further violence. In a bid to stabilize the country, talks are underway to appoint former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as interim Prime Minister, a move backed by Gen Z protest leaders who view her as a symbol of anti-corruption reform. However, questions remain about her eligibility as she is not a sitting member of parliament. With Nepal's political future hanging in the balance, the nation faces a critical test in restoring governance and addressing the deep frustration of its youth. In the meantime, President Donald Trump has announced that the suspect in the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Speaking during a live interview, Trump said the individual was turned in by someone close to him, a minister involved in law enforcement who coordinated with a U.S. Marshal to bring the suspect to police headquarters. Kirk, co-founder of Turning Point USA, was shot and killed on Wednesday while speaking at Utah Valley University. Authorities believe the shooter fired a single fatal round from a rooftop approximately 200 yards away, striking Kirk in the neck. Surveillance footage showed the suspect fleeing across a roof and into nearby woods, where a high-powered bolt-action rifle was later recovered. The killing has sparked widespread grief and outrage, with vigils held across the country and bipartisan condemnation of political violence. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has vowed to pursue the death penalty, while Trump urged supporters to respond peacefully. A formal press briefing from law enforcement is expected to provide further details on the suspect's identity and motive. Coming back to Africa now, Burkina Faso has officially removed visa fees for all African citizens, marking a bold step towards regional integration and continental unity. The decision, approved during a cabinet meeting chaired by military leader Captain Ibrahim Traore, aims to promote tourism, facilitate free movement, and reinforce the country's Pan-African ideals. Security Minister Mahamadou Sana clarified that while visa fees are waived, African travelers must still apply online for entry approval. The policy aligns Burkina Faso with countries like Ghana, Rwanda, and Kenya, which have adopted similar open border frameworks. Officials say the move will boost Burkinabe culture and visibility abroad, even as the country navigates its recent withdrawal from ECOWAS alongside Mali and Niger. Despite ongoing security challenges, including a persistent insurgency and limited state control over parts of the country, the government insists the visa reform reflects its commitment to African solidarity. Analysts view the measure as a step towards the African Union's long-term vision of a single continental passport and unrestricted movement across member states. Well, South Sudan's first Vice President, Riek Machar, has been formally charged with treason, murder and crimes against humanity following a deadly attack on a military base in Nasir, Upper Nile State. The government alleges that Machar ordered the White Army militia, comprised largely of fighters from his Nuer ethnic group, to carry out the assault in early March, which left more than 250 soldiers dead and a UN helicopter shot down. Justice Minister Joseph Geng Akech described the crimes as grave violations of international humanitarian law, citing desecration of corpses, attacks on civilians, and obstruction of humanitarian efforts. Machar, who has been under house arrest since the incident, was suspended from office by President Salva Kiir shortly after the charges were announced. Petroleum Minister Puwot Kang Chol and 20 others were also indicted, with 13 suspects still at large. The charges have reignited fears of renewed conflict between Kiir and Machar, whose rivalry previously plunged South Sudan into a 5-year civil war that claimed over 400,000 lives. Activists and international observers are calling for a fair trial, warning that political instability could derail the fragile peace process and further destabilize the region. And that wraps up the program. But before we go, the headlines again. Gaza death toll rises as Qatar seeks U.S. support amid escalating conflict. Nepal in crisis has 51 dead, over 12,000 prisoners still at large amid protests. Trump confirms suspect in Charlie Kirk shooting is in custody. And in Burkina Faso drops visa fees for African nationals in Pan-African push. For more updates and in-depth analysis, follow Politics and Business TV English on YouTube and Facebook. Connect with us on Instagram at PNBTV.English and TikTok at PNB.TV.English. Remember to subscribe and stay informed. From me, Fatima Abubakar Oyibo, do have a lovely day and bye for now.